Imagine this scenario. It is day 3 of a regional power outage. The roads are passable, the stores are open, but the shelves look like a tornado hit them. White rice, gone. Canned beans, gone. Pasta, gone. Freeze-dried emergency meals from the prepper blogs, completely gone by noon on day 1. And yet, over in the corner of the store, certain shelves are completely untouched. Nobody is fighting over them. Nobody even glanced at them. The stock boys did not bother pulling from the back because demand was 0. Here is what I want you to think about. If everyone in your zip code reads the same preparedness blogs, watches the same channels, and buys the same recommended list, you do not have a stockpile. You have a collective single point of failure. When the crisis hits, you are all racing for the exact same items at the exact same time, and most of you are going home empty-handed. The 11 foods I'm going to show you have one thing in common. They were sitting on the shelf untouched while everything else sold out. That is not an accident. That is a pattern. And once you understand the pattern, you will never shop for emergencies the same way again. This is not a top 10 gear list. This is not fear content. This is physics, nutrition science, and 30 years of supply chain logic applied to your pantry. Stay with me. Food number 1, hard winter wheat berries. Most preppers stockpile flour. That is the mistake. Here's the problem. White all-purpose flour has a shelf life of 1 to 2 years under good conditions, and often less. The oils and nutrients in milled grain go rancid. The structure breaks down. You open a 5-pound bag you bought 18 months ago, and it smells off and bakes flat. Here is why this happens. When you mill grain, you expose the germ and the bran oils to oxygen. Oxidation begins immediately. You cannot stop it by sealing a bag of flour. The damage is already in progress. Here is the solution. Buy the grain whole and mill it yourself when you need it. Hard red or hard white winter wheat berries stored in 5-gallon food-grade buckets with oxygen absorbers last 20 to 30 years or more. That is not a typo. The intact seed coat protects everything inside. The nutrients, the oils, the structural proteins are all locked in until you crack the kernel. A hand crank grain mill runs $50 to $90 for a basic model. You crank it, you have fresh flour in under 10 minutes. No electricity required. Freshly milled whole wheat contains every B vitamin, every trace mineral, and the healthy germ oils completely intact. Commercial flour has had most of that removed to extend shelf life. 100 pounds of wheat berries costs roughly $60 and fits in 2 5-gallon buckets. That is over a year of flour for a family of 4. 1,500 to 1,600 calories per pound. You can also cook the berries whole, like rice, sprout them in winter for fresh greens when no produce is available, or crack them into a rough porridge. 1 ingredient, 4 uses. Pro tip, if you have celiac disease or gluten intolerance, substitute rice, certified gluten-free oats, or quinoa stored the same way. The oxygen absorber and sealed bucket method applies to all of them. Food number 2, ghee. Normal butter is brilliant until the power goes out. Then it turns into a clock. You have roughly 4 to 7 days before it goes rancid at room temperature, depending on your climate. In a summer outage in the south, you might have 2 days. Here is the physics. Butter is roughly 80% fat and 20% water and milk solids. That 20% is what spoils. The milk proteins and sugars create an environment for bacterial activity and oxidative rancidity even without refrigeration. Ghee removes that 20% entirely. Clarified butter is pure butter fat. No water, no milk solids, no refrigeration needed. At room temperature in a sealed jar, properly made, ghee lasts 12 to 18 months. Some batches last longer. In a cool pantry or basement, even more. 1 tablespoon delivers 14 grams of fat and 120 calories. When you are rationing and every calorie counts, concentrated caloric density matters enormously. You are not eating for pleasure in a crisis. You are fueling a machine that needs to keep functioning. Last summer, during a week-long outage, I fried eggs in ghee, sautéed rice, baked flatbreads on a cast iron pan over a camp stove. Real cooking, from scratch, without a refrigerator. The jar on my shelf made it possible. Price is $10 to $15 for a large jar at any Indian grocery or big box store. One smell test tells you everything you need to know. Nutty, slightly caramel aroma means it is good. Sour or sharp smell means discard it. Food number 3, chia seeds. 2 tablespoons contain 4 grams of complete protein, 11 grams of fiber, a meaningful dose of omega-3 fatty acids, calcium, and iron. That is a remarkable nutritional profile for something the size of a poppy seed. But here is the survival application most people miss entirely. Chia seeds absorb up to 12 times their weight in water and form a gel. 1 part chia seeds to 4 parts water, let it sit for 15 minutes, and you have a thick, filling, calorie-dense meal that requires 0 cooking and 0 fuel. It expands further in your stomach. It keeps you full for 3 to 4 hours on almost nothing. When your fuel supply is limited, that matters. Every hot meal you do not have to cook is fuel saved for when you really need it. Cold chia pudding from your water bottle is a real option at 0 cost in fuel. Stored in a cool, dark place, chia seeds last 2 to 4 years. In the freezer, 4 to 5 years or more. 5 pounds runs about $12 to $15 at most grocery stores or warehouse clubs. Nobody was fighting over the chia seeds in 2020. The shelves were completely full. Food number 4, red, green, and black lentils. Most preppers buy brown lentils and stop there. That is leaving most of the value on the table. Here is the critical difference that changes your cooking in a crisis. Red lentils cook in 15 minutes and dissolve into a creamy soup. No soaking, no waiting. 15 minutes from bag to bowl. Green and black lentils hold their shape and work like a grain side dish or stew base. Brown lentils are the most common and work fine, but take the longest. The reason cooking time matters so much is fuel. In any extended outage or off-grid situation, your propane, your wood, your camp fuel is finite. Dried beans require 1 to 2 hours of boiling. That is an enormous fuel cost per meal. Lentils cut that cost by 75% or more. 1 cooked cup delivers 18 grams of protein, 16 grams of fiber, and significant iron and folate. Nutritionists rank lentils among the most complete plant-based foods you can store. Combined with any grain, the amino acid profile becomes nearly equivalent to meat. In sealed buckets with oxygen absorbers, lentils last 10 to 15 years. 25 pounds spread across several varieties costs under $60. Pro tip, store at least 3 different varieties. Red for soups, green or black for texture, brown for bulk. Variety matters more than you think when you are eating from storage for weeks. Food number 5, nutritional yeast. This is the item that gets the most skeptical looks when I mention it. Bear with me for 60 seconds because this one earns its place on the list in a way nothing else does. Nutritional yeast is deactivated yeast with a savory, cheesy, nutty flavor. 2 tablespoons deliver 5 to 8 grams of complete protein containing all 9 essential amino acids. It is shelf-stable for 2 or more years in an airtight container. And because almost no one outside of the health food world buys it, the supply chain for it is completely separate from the mainstream panic buying pattern. Here is the real reason it belongs in your stockpile. Flavor, morale, mental resilience under sustained stress. After 10 days of rice and beans, the psychological weight of eating the same bland food becomes a genuine problem. It affects decision-making, emotional stability, cooperation within a household. Military ration programs have known this for decades. A tablespoon of nutritional yeast over plain rice or a bowl of lentil soup changes the flavor profile completely. It adds umami depth, a cheesy richness that makes a bare-bones meal feel like an actual meal. That is not a luxury. That is a survival tool. Buy only the fortified variety. Unfortified nutritional yeast does not provide B12. Fortified versions supply the full B vitamin complex, including B12, which your nervous system requires and which is nearly absent from plant-heavy emergency diets. Store it in a mason jar in a cool, dark cabinet. Food number 6, full-fat coconut milk in cans. Not the carton, not coconut water, the thick, creamy, full-fat canned version from the Asian grocery aisle. And here is the exact data that makes this critical. White rice contains 0 grams of fat. Dried beans contain almost none. Red lentils, almost none. Most emergency food stockpiles are almost entirely carbohydrate with moderate protein and virtually no fat. That is a problem. Your body needs dietary fat to absorb vitamins A, D, E, and K. It needs fat for sustained thermal regulation, especially in winter. It needs fat for neurological function. Without adequate dietary fat, you absorb a fraction of the nutrition in the food you are eating. You are technically fed and still malnourishing yourself. 1 cup of canned full-fat coconut milk contains 48 to 57 grams of fat, the majority of which are medium-chain triglycerides. Your liver processes MCTs rapidly and converts them to energy faster than most other fats. On a camping trip 3 winters ago, 3 days of cold weather on rice and beans left my group exhausted and mentally foggy despite eating enough calories. 1 can of coconut milk in the rice pot that evening, and within an hour, the clarity came back. The fat made the difference, not just the calories. Shelf life is 2 to 3 years on the label, often 5 or more in reality. Price is roughly $2 per can at Asian grocery stores. During supply disruptions, mainstream grocery aisles empty. The Asian grocery aisle does not. Same with Indian, Latin, and international food sections generally. Food number 7, bulk salt. Most preppers buy a few extra boxes of table salt and think they are covered. They are not. Here's the actual math. The average American uses roughly 8 to 12 pounds of salt per year in cooking alone. Add in any food preservation, and that number multiplies fast. Salt has 3 uses in a crisis that are not about flavor. First, electrolyte replacement. When you are working hard in heat, you lose sodium through sweat. Without replacing it, you develop hyponatremia, which causes muscle cramps, confusion, and in serious cases, is life-threatening. Sports drinks cover this in normal life. In a crisis, you need the raw ingredient. Second, food preservation. If your freezer goes down and you have meat to save, salt curing and brining are the oldest preservation methods in human history. You cannot do this with 3 boxes of Morton's. You need bulk. Third, wound care. Saline solution for wound irrigation requires salt and clean water. Simple, cheap, and effective for basic first aid when medical supply chains are disrupted. I store 12 pounds in food-grade buckets with tight lids and a few grains of dry rice inside to prevent clumping. Shelf life is indefinite. Salt is a mineral. It does not expire. 12 pounds costs roughly $8 to $12. If you have blood pressure concerns, you still need the stockpile for preservation and wound care. Just moderate personal intake. Food number 8, quality instant noodles from Asian grocery stores. Not the 25-cent packets from the discount bin. The good stuff. Japanese, Korean, or Chinese brand ramen and soba blocks from the Asian grocery aisle. And I want to explain exactly what makes them different. Budget instant noodles are mostly refined starch and a sodium bomb. Asian grocery brand noodles are often wheat-based or egg-based with genuine protein content of 6 to 8 grams per block. The flavor packets in quality brands contain actual dehydrated vegetables, real mushroom powder, and complex seasoning blends that took a culinary team to develop. The flavor diversity alone is worth the price difference. During a 30-day stockpile test I ran 2 years ago, I hit a wall on day 12. Rice, beans, lentils. The meals were nutritious. The monotony was eroding my willingness to keep eating properly. I opened a package of Korean black bean noodles. 3 minutes of boiling water. The flavor reset everything. I finished the test. 100 blocks from an Asian grocery store runs roughly $80. 3 minutes preparation time, 2 cups of water, 500 to 600 calories per block, no refrigeration, 2-year shelf life, and the shelves at Asian grocery stores stay full during supply disruptions because mainstream panic buying does not touch them. Sodium note: 800 to 1500 milligrams per serving is typical. If you have hypertension, use half the flavor packet or skip it and season with your own stored salt and nutritional yeast. Food number 9. Textured vegetable protein, also called TVP. Most Americans have never heard of this. Outdoor survivalists and backpackers have used it for decades. Here is what it is and why it belongs on this list. TVP is dehydrated soy protein that comes in chunks or granules. It is extremely lightweight, dirt cheap, and has a protein content of about 12 grams per 40-gram dry serving. When you rehydrate it in hot water for 10 minutes, it develops a texture almost identical to ground beef or chicken. The same browning behavior, the same bite, the same visual appearance in a dish. 2 cups of hot water per 1 cup of dry TVP. 10 minutes. Then use it exactly where you would use ground meat. Chili, taco filling, pasta sauce, stir fry, soup. Half a pound of dry TVP yields 1 to 1.5 pounds of reconstituted protein equivalent. Price is $3 to $4 per half pound. Stored in airtight containers with oxygen absorbers, TVP lasts 5 to 15 years. The caloric efficiency per dollar and per square inch of storage space is almost unmatched. Note the allergy consideration. Soy is a common allergen. For non-GMO versions, look for certified organic. Food number 10, skim powdered milk, stored correctly. Here is where most people make a critical error and end up with a useless product. Buying whole milk powder and leaving it in the original cardboard packaging is one of the most common stockpile mistakes I see. Cardboard breathes, moisture enters, fats oxidize. Within months, most whole milk powder stored in its original container develops a rancid smell and refuses to dissolve cleanly. Here is the correct approach. Buy skim powdered milk, not whole. Skim has had the fat removed, which means there is almost nothing to go rancid. Transfer it immediately from the cardboard into Mylar bags with oxygen absorbers, then seal. Stored this way, skim powdered milk lasts 15 to 20 years. Whole milk powder stored the same way lasts 5 to 10 years because of the residual fat content. Uses are straightforward: reconstitute for drinking, baking, pancakes, creamy soups, coffee, hot cereal. 15 pounds of skim powdered milk costs roughly $80 and provides years of dairy without refrigeration. That 15 to 20 year shelf life when stored in Mylar is the number most people do not know, and it changes the entire calculus of whether this belongs in a serious stockpile. Food number 11, bouillon cubes, and more specifically, why they outlast everything else on the shelf. Here is a fact that a distribution manager with 20 years in food logistics told me. During genuine regional supply disruptions, bouillon products are consistently among the last items depleted. White rice gone in 3 hours, Canned beans gone by afternoon, bouillon still on the shelf the next day. The reason is simple and worth understanding. Bouillon does not read as a primary food. People in panic mode reach for things that look like a meal. Bouillon looks like a condiment. They skip it. But here is what it actually does in an extended food storage situation. It transforms the experience of eating from storage. 10 days of plain rice and lentils is survivable, but it erodes morale, appetite, and willingness to eat adequate quantities. Drop 1 cube into boiling water with your rice or lentils, and the meal becomes something you want to eat. That distinction matters more than most preparedness content acknowledges. I store 500 cubes for under $30. Transfer them from cardboard into mason jars with silica gel packets to keep moisture out. This extends shelf life significantly beyond the printed date and prevents the cubes from clumping into an unusable block. Medical note: sodium content is high, roughly 900 milligrams per cube. If sodium is a concern, low sodium versions exist at most grocery stores. Use half a cube per pot rather than 1. At those quantities, the morale benefit remains while the sodium load drops by half. Here is the principle that ties all 11 of these foods together. Every single item on this list is available when the mainstream lists are empty. Every one costs less per calorie than the products everyone else is bulk buying. Everyone has been tested for decades or centuries by cultures that depended on it for survival, not just convenience. And almost none of them appear on the standard American preparedness blog recommendations. That last point is not an accident. The incentive structure in the food industry, including the preparedness food industry, does not reward teaching people to stock affordable, versatile, long-lasting staples. It rewards selling expensive freeze-dried meal kits with $100 price tags and 30-year claims that will never be tested. The best preparedness strategy is not following the crowd. It is thinking independently about what actually works at the physical and nutritional level, what actually stays on the shelf when panic clears everything else out, and what actually sustains a household for weeks or months on a realistic budget. You now know the foods and the reasons behind each one. You know the shelf life numbers, the storage methods, the caloric density, and why the supply chain dynamics favor the unconventional choice. Go buy one item from this list this week. Test it. Cook with it. Build the system from the inside out. The knowledge only becomes preparedness when it is on your shelf. Stay ready.